Since the first Disneyland park opened in 1955, the use of illegal drugs in any of its parks has been forbidden. I mean, no surprise there, illegal drugs are pretty much forbidden everywhere. That's what illegal means. So today we're going to take a look at a couple of cases of people who ignored these rules in both Disneyland Paris and Disney World Florida and took drugs inside the parks, specifically the drug LSD, or acid for you cool kids. A 32-year-old Swiss engineer and his 30-year-old girlfriend were visiting Disneyland in Paris one Friday. Whilst there, the man was reportedly given a dose of LSD by his girlfriend. Now, for those who don't know, LSD is an illegal hallucinogenic drug. The drugs had been smuggled into the park past the park security checks, which consists of bag checks and metal detectors, thereby violating Disney's rules, which prohibit all illicit substances which could endanger visitors' security at the park. So the man ends up taking the LSD in the early hours of the evening. Then, a few hours later, as the park was nearing closing time, his girlfriend reported to Disneyland staff that her boyfriend had gone missing. She told staff that he had fallen into the lake next to Adventureland. Here, she also revealed to the staff that he had taken LSD. It is unknown whether the man fell in or actively jumped into the lake, which contains a replica of Skull Rock and Captain Hook's ship, but no one saw him re-emerge. According to Google, on the 20th of September 2019, the sun did go down in Paris at 7:54 PM, which is when Disneyland is still open, so it is perfectly plausible that this guy fell in the dark. Disney then began a full search endeavour that night, with the help of 30 firefighters, 10 police officers, 10 divers, 80 Disneyland staff, sniffer dogs, thermal cameras, and even at one point a military helicopter. Despite this mammoth effort, the man or his body was nowhere to be found. It is unknown whether the girlfriend had also taken the LSD, but it was noted by Le Parisien, a French news publication, that she did not seem to be in possession of all her means. So make of that as you will, as her behaviour may have simply been as a result of worry and panic at the loss of her boyfriend. Or, it could just be because she was high on LSD. So at this point in the story, you're probably thinking to yourself, as I was, that this man's corpse is about to be dragged out of a river by these divers, and that's going to be the end of the story. But no, this is instead where the story takes a very, very bizarre turn, as during this time, the man had apparently climbed out of the lake himself, removed all of his wet clothes, left the Disney park entirely, and travelled 2 kilometres, roughly 1.2 miles, to a small residential street in the town of Chessy. The street, named Chemin des Fosses Rouges, which I'm sorry for butchering that name, was a pretty fancy street lined with cottages and large villas. He was first noticed by a 44-year-old man travelling home from work, who recounted, "I was returning home by car Saturday around 1 AM when I came face to face, if I may say so, with a naked man. He was walking in the middle of the road. He didn't have an inch of fabric on him and he walked barefoot. I stopped, got out of the car and went to meet him. I wanted to know what a naked man was doing 300 metres from my house. He had scratches on his legs and arms and didn't remember anything. At first I was worried and then I saw that he was lost. He didn't speak French. I think he's a German Swiss. We spoke in English. He told me that he had a bet with friends, but he took LSD and his girlfriend must be worried. I offered to call them, but he did not remember their number." The naked Swiss man, who had now fully dried off in the warm evening air, was taken to the house of a man who had found him, where he was given some old rugby shorts and a t-shirt to wear. Once dressed, he was taken back to the Disneyland park, where he was dropped off outside the Disney Village Cinema, located at the edge of the park, at approximately 1:15 AM. Once found by Disney staff, he and his partner were arrested and taken into custody at a police station in Chessy for drug use. However, they were later released the next day, in the afternoon at around 4 PM, receiving only a rappel à la loi, or reminder of the law, having spent less than a day behind bars. In France, a rappel à la loi doesn't get added to a person's criminal record and is more so used as a kind of warning when a prosecutor doesn't press charges. And Disneyland didn't press charges on the Swiss tourists. A Disney spokesperson later stated regarding the incident that none of these events had any impact on park guests, who were unaware anything was amiss and that it didn't interfere with the 5K race that was taking place at Disney during the same time as part of its Run Weekend event. It remains unknown as to how the Swiss man managed to get out of the lake, out of Disneyland, and turn up 2 kilometres away, or even what happened to the man's clothes. And it is likely to remain a mystery, as the man has said that he retains no memory of the events. However, it is likely that once leaving the lake, which is located near the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, a ride in which guests often emerged wetter than when they entered, he likely wouldn't have been too noteworthy. Then, upon leaving the park, that's when he would have removed his still wet clothes before walking the 2 kilometres to Chemin de Fosse Rouge. "19-year-old James Arvid took LSD at Disney World in Florida on October the 25th, 2020, and this resulted in the young man soon being arrested after attacking a 41-year-old security guard in Animal Kingdom's Dino Land, USA. The security guard was going about his usual business, patrolling the park, when James Arvid suddenly runs up behind him and tackles him from behind. He then put the security guard in a headlock and held him down. Luckily, during this, the guard managed to radio for help. At this point, park guests were beginning to notice, and several people tried to pull James off of the security guard. They then restrained him until police finally arrived. He was then restrained on a stretcher and taken to a nearby hospital. He would later tell a nurse that he had taken LSD, then tried to kill someone, meaning if the park guests hadn't stepped in, this story likely would have had a very different end. Thankfully, the security guard didn't sustain any serious injuries, other than some bloody cuts on his elbows. The sheriff described James as being bloody, sweating profusely, non-responsive to commands, and compulsively kicking his legs, and that he appeared to be in a state of excited delirium and unexpected strength. One of the doctors treating James would later tell police that he showed signs of a heat stroke, alcohol use, and drug use, which could have led to his aggressive state of mind. James was later charged with battery of the security guard, but pleaded not guilty. So there we have it. It's reasons like these why Disney is usually so stringent with its rules on taking any form of drugs within its parks. Smoking cigarettes was recently banned at the 2 Disney parks in America. Not banned in Disneyland Paris, however. I went there recently and it's like walking through an ashtray. If you're a big fan of breathing, probably stay away from Disneyland Paris. Alcohol also used to be banned across the Disney parks, however, Galaxy's Edge in Disney World now features Ogre's Cantina, which serves alcoholic drinks. So instead of getting high on LSD, you can just get blackout drunk in Disney instead. So, that's the moral. LSD bad, but something called a fuzzy tauntaun with peach vodka and peach snaps is good. Looking into it further, Olga's Cantina has a special breakfast alcoholic drink menu. You know, for the people who have arrived at Disney World and are already sick of their families. So the morning menu includes things like Bloody Rancor, which is vodka, chili liqueur, and spicy Bloody Mary mix. I mean, who's having that at 9 AM? And a Spyron Caf, which contains coffee, orange marmalade, rum, and whipped cream. And they have something called a Mustafarian cinnamon roll, which is... Oh no, wait, that's just a cinnamon roll.